Hello, everybody. My name is Matt Saldana. I work for the Teaching, Learning, and Professional Development Center. I also work with a program called Presentation and Communication Effectiveness, or PACE. And so what we have for you today is a little workshop on presenting your research poster. So this is kind of in a second workshop. The first one was building that poster. So you wrote your abstract, that was accepted. You're going to present a poster. So this is a little bit more about kind of the content that you'll put within that poster. Whereas if you wanted to kind of discuss a little bit more or watch our workshop on how to put your poster together, that one is going to be in a separate file, separate video for you to check out. But so these are a great combination, watching the kind of how you build them, and then kind of, again, for this piece, thinking about how you're going to present that poster in terms of what you're going to put on the poster for the writing, and also, again, how you're going to present that poster, just in general, like how you do it. What are some things to consider? So again, my name is Matt. I've done a number of posters throughout my time here at Tech, both as a student and as a staff member here. So feel free to reach out. One of the things that I will, of course, want to make sure that everybody understands who takes these workshops is to make sure that you keep your mentors involved in with what you're doing, with what you're writing, how you're presenting that information, because they will certainly have some great information for you there as well. So one thing I do want to mention, or that I want to note, first off, is congratulations on your poster. It's exciting. It really is exciting. In research, presenting a poster is something that you're going to do quite regularly. If for those of you who are planning on going into grad school, whether it's at a master's level or maybe at a PhD level, or some other kind of schooling, med school, going to law school, things like that, presenting a poster is something that is going to be pretty common. Then that's a quick way to show the research that you've been doing. It could be an ongoing study. It could be a study that maybe has come to a conclusion. It can be a long-term study, a short-term study. Any number of things can be on these posters, and it's a really great way to do a couple things. Of course, learn some skills on how to present, but also talk about that research. Right? There's a lot of research going on, not just in your lab or in your college or in your department, not even just at this university. There are researchers all across the country and all across the world. So being able to communicate that, talk about your research versus somebody else's research, it's such a fun thing to do. And it's so happy for everybody who's taken on this challenge, and really, really happy that you're doing this. So relax, enjoy the process of writing the abstract, which you've already done, the excitement of being accepted, and also kind of the cool parts of putting the poster together, looking at it, having someone else look at it, presenting the poster, and then also kind of thinking about what you've done once the conference is over, and how you can kind of take those lessons learned and whatever feedback you may have gotten, and how that can really help you take your research to the next level, and also how you can learn how to present posters a little bit better, get a little bit more comfortable with it, because again, like anything, it does take some practice before you really feel 100% comfortable with that. But again, congratulations, relax. The work's already done. The research is already done, or at least the piece that you're presenting on. So now it's about being able to communicate that out to other folks. So, all right, so I have here what I would call 5 tips to helping you think about what you're going to write on your poster. The first one being is to define the purpose. Now, in most cases, posters are usually kind of a quick and easy way to get information out there to other folks. Now, again, remember that a poster is generally going to be limited in space, so you can't put every single thing out there. So what you put on there needs to have a purpose. And so you could ask yourself some of the following questions. What do you want someone passing by to do? Do you want them to just kind of look at the poster, collect the information, and then move on? Or is there something else that you want from them? Maybe it's a collaboration. Maybe you're hoping that they'll learn something new. One of the great things about the URC, this conference, is that there's discipline that's multidisciplinary, so it could be anybody. It could be someone who's studying history, or someone who's studying engineering, chemical engineering, mathematics. It could be anybody walking by your poster. So what are you hoping that they're going to get out of that? Do you want to discuss those contents? Are you going to actively engage those folks, which we would certainly recommend that you do? That way you can get some feedback from folks as they pass by. But what really is the purpose of your poster? Are you looking to have someone kind of really engage, which hopefully they will, but also what else is going to happen with this poster, right? Remember that some of these posters can be used once, some can be used multiple times. So depending on if you're going to take this poster and maybe present it at another conference, maybe you should think about that as you're putting your poster together, right? Maybe this conference is maybe more non-specialist, so maybe that's how we want to tailor it. But another poster that, or another conference that you're going to is more specialist, so you want to make sure that you have the poster written appropriately for both, right? If it's a non-specialist audience, then you would want to be sure to define like your acronyms, or make sure that if you are talking about a specific piece of equipment, that you note that. Whereas if you're going to a conference that is for specialists, maybe you don't have to define every single acronym, or the people there would know what, they would have some background knowledge on that information, so you don't have to define everything. So again, thinking about the purpose, define that purpose. What do you want this poster to do? Okay. And that will help you be a lot more intentional with what you're writing. Again, we don't want to just put words on the paper or on the poster. We want each one of those boxes to do something for us, to convey that message, to make our poster as memorable as possible, because do remember that this is a competition. The URC does give away some awards for these posters, and that's really going to be on that impact. So I guess I give you a little bit of a hint there. One of the purposes that you should define is how your impact, or how your research impacts your impact area. So again, a little tip for you there. You want to be able to definitely sell your work in 10 seconds. Now, again, this 10 seconds is kind of just an arbitrary time frame. But again, one thing that you have to keep in mind is that there are going to be several posters at this conference. And by several, I mean upwards of, within each session, could be 50, could be 75, could be somewhere upwards of 100. I know that there were several hundred entries. So there are going to be a lot of posters. So when somebody's coming by, they may not have a whole lot of time to look at your poster. They may just be kind of walking through. They may ask for just a quick brief sentence or two of kind of the work with what you've done. And so you should be able to sell that relatively quick. I say 10 seconds just because I know that these posters are close together. So I'm easily, from one spot, I'm easily able to look at multiple posters. So again, in order to maybe grab someone's attention, you're going to have a very, very short amount of time to do that. Again, you'll only have a moment or two to pique someone's interest, and that can be done in a number of different ways. It can be either with the title, or maybe with the results that you have, maybe a chart that you have that's very, very distinctive, like one, fertilizer A, fertilizer B, again, to kind of go back from another example that I used in the prior workshop. Fertilizer A is great, fertilizer B is not, and that's a very significant difference between those two. That can pique someone's interest. Maybe a question that you have for an audience member could pique people's interest. So you're only going to have that moment or two to do that. So certainly take advantage of that once you as you're putting your poster together. What's going to be the most interesting piece of the research that I'm doing? And also a good way to think about that is what is it that you're most passionate about, right? And so again, that kind of comes into another point. One way to pique someone's interest is to pose your work as addressing a question, right? So if you're really passionate about fertilizers, that can be your way to pique someone's interest, right? And that could just be, if you're excited, one of the things that I'll always tell people is that if you're excited about what you're presenting, that will help you in selling your work, in defining your purpose, in grabbing someone's attention, right? So as long as you're passionate about it, as long as you want to see where it's going, whether it's going to be a long study or maybe we're going to see what happens in the future with if it's a piece of technology or something like that, as long as you're passionate about that, folks will really start to take that interest, and that will help you in piquing others and their interest. All right, so many of the rules for writing good papers apply to posters too. Okay, so again, one thing for sure that you want to do, and this is kind of a general tip regardless of where you're going, you want to identify the audience and provide appropriate scope and depth. Now, again, remember that the URC is a non-specialist. So the folks that you're probably going to be presenting to would be a lay audience, meaning they're just regular people. They may or may not have any sort of background in what you're researching or what you're talking about, the subject matter. So you want to kind of go in with that assumption that there may be things that we need to explain a little bit better. If we're going to use acronyms, we may need to define those. We need to be careful with what we do there, because you could be talking to any number of people with any knowledge, or maybe they don't have any knowledge. So you want to think about those things. Now, this was a specialist conference where it was everything is about chemicals or chemical engineering or chemistry in general. Then you could probably dive a little bit deeper, right? You would understand that people who are studying chemistry understand chemical compounds or something along those lines. So maybe you don't have to explain that as in depth, or making sure that your poster kind of notes some of that information, right? You would be able to dive a little bit deeper, but you would need to identify that the audience to make sure that you are doing that correctly. Okay. If the conference includes the non-specialists, consider them too. Again, we just kind of mentioned that. And this one generally typically tends to be something that we tend to forget about. We get so consumed with our own research. We know the ins and the outs. If this again is about biology or chemistry, we know all the basics. We know maybe about organic chemistry or inorganic chemistry or botany or whatever that may be. You know, we may have that information. So we also need to think about, what if somebody is a non-specialist, or what if somebody is a specialist? Maybe they're also, maybe you're a biologist and they're a biologist, but you study two different fields in biology, right? So maybe the basics that everybody understands, but once you get into that specialized work, you know, think about those things, right? And you'll know who this audience is. This is an undergraduate research conference that brings in undergraduates from all disciplines. You've got a lot of different folks that are come through here through the conference anyway, as far as judges go, moderators, just folks with interest, and you want to make sure that you consider those folks who may or may not be non-specialists. So your abstract was a very succinct summary of your work when you wrote that to the conference, and your poster should be as well. So your abstract, again, was done very well. Otherwise, you would not have been accepted to the conference. So you need to make sure that your poster does the same thing, right? Try not to get too bogged down in tiny details. I typically will see this whenever people are discussing their results. They tend to talk about every single little bit of information on their results. I considered the growth of fertilizer or plants using fertilizer A in a lot of sunlight, and a little bit of sunlight, and the dark. You know, they'll write every single thing, where that would probably be best in a graphical form, right? So again, remember that you have a limited amount of real estate on that poster. Anything that you do write, you want to make sure that it's written very well. So as you're writing through your papers, as you're writing your reports, things like that, those are typically done very well. So make sure that you apply some of those good rules for your papers onto your posters as well. Okay. All right. Next, we have that our content is important, but keep it concise. Again, limited amount of space. Everything on your poster should help convey your message, right? If you have significant findings, you want to make sure that that is something that everything on your poster conveys that message, right? If you're looking at your poster, you're going to have a box, maybe a box at the top again in the middle, and then your results right smack in the middle, a box, and then another box, and within those boxes, an introduction, some conclusions at the bottom, right? But you want to make sure that everything on that poster conveys that message, right? And again, the message that we're trying to convey for this conference is the impact of your research on that impact area. So again, if you kind of go with that thought in mind, that's going to help you with the actual poster itself and make sure that you have all of that information in a concise manner that does communicate that impact. Okay, so as you're kind of structuring that, again, think about your graphics. We typically would tell somebody if you're trying to explain something and it's getting rather wordy, why don't you think about using a graphic instead, right? If you want to maybe describe your methods and you want to talk about, well, we took chemical A and chemical B and we put it in these titration tubes, and they were each tube was 100 milliliters of fluid. I mean, that's, you can kind of see that that's starting to get rather wordy. So maybe rather than write all of that out, maybe let's take a picture. Let's take a picture of the titration tubes that we used, and we can label them, or we can just show here, this is what we did. So that when somebody comes to the poster and says, hey, I really like what you did. What kind of, how did you do that? How did you test these chemicals? And you can say, oh, well, if you look at my picture here, you can see the two titration tubes, and then you can go at it that way. Again, that would be something that might pique someone's interest and grab their attention. So that's something that you should really consider if you tend to find that you're getting wordy. And typically, again, like I think we've kind of already mentioned, results are very wordy. You want to try to explain everything, every result. You want to maybe think about this result may be different if it was under this condition. That's all fine, but maybe that's done better by using a graph or using a chart or using some kind of graphic that can help you explain that, or again, kind of grabbing someone's attention, right? That's an interesting result. Can you tell me a little bit more about your results that you have on this chart, right? And so again, thinking about things in that manner will help you kind of put your poster together, in particular if you find that pieces are starting to get a little bit wordy. Have some clear and obvious sets of conclusions. Again, eyes tend to go from, and we talked about this on the structure and in the building your poster workshop. Most eyes tend to start at that top, right, towards that top left, where folks are see your abstract, and then they tend to go on a diagonal to the middle, and then down to the bottom at your conclusions. All right, so make sure that you have that you pay special attention to those areas, right? Those are going to be the hot zones. So you want to have a good abstract introduction, some great graphics that kind of convey your results, and then again your conclusions. And again, one of the things that I'll tell you guys, if y'all are not sure if the conclusions maybe are pending or this is an ongoing study, make sure you include that information, right? Because if it's an ongoing experiment, that's another great way to engage folks. Like this is, these are the conclusions that we have right now. When we finished our study in February, we've been continuing this on, and kind of here's the results that we have right now. Or you could say, hey, this is something that we're still working on. If you would like to, we can reach out, we can connect later, and I can give you more results later on. Again, it's a way to engage people. It's a way to pull people in, because they're definitely going to look at conclusions, right? I'll tell you from my own experience, I do the exact same thing. I start at the intros, abstracts, results, conclusions, And then from there, if I need some more clarification on something, then I'll kind of jump around, or I'll ask the presenter a little bit more. But you want to make sure that everything you have in those hot zones is very well done, very well written, and something that you can certainly point to and say, oh, this is my conclusions. Here's my graphics, right? These are my awesome graphics, and here's what I'm doing. Here's my intro, my abstract. And so now you know what I'm doing. You saw the results. Here are those conclusions. All very well done. All right, and so we kind of get to the last one here. And this one is one that I don't think that too many people think about, especially if you've never done posters or presentations like this before. But the impact of a poster happens both during and after the poster session. And that could be done in a lot of ways, but the first thing is, of course, is to be engaging. If you engage one audience member, I see somebody coming, I give them an opportunity to look at my poster, and then I engage them. Other folks will be interested as well. Maybe they have the same question, a similar question, or interested in the question that was asked, and they're listening to those to the results or to the answer to that question. So as you engage the one person, they'll start to follow, others will kind of get interested. Again, think about if you've ever walked between the library and the student union building, and you have all the students and their tables out there trying to get people to sign a petition or sign up for something, right? The folks that are the most engaging, the students who are the most engaging out there, tend to have the most of their fellow students around their table. So again, be active, be engaging. Make sure that you try to work that audience again as much as possible. Now, when we say work the audience, if you're able to greet everybody who comes by, if you're not able to do that verbally, maybe you can do that with a nod or a wave or something like that, so that you want to be able to let those folks know that you're available to ask questions, right? I may be talking to somebody over here, but if you've got something, I see you, I know you're there, I will get to you right away. And that really helps, again, with that engagement piece. Make it easy for someone to contact you after the conference. So, and this could be yourself personally, or maybe the mentor. Maybe if you're working in a lab, maybe they want to reach out to the lab. If you've worked like I have in the past, sometimes the labs have different teams. Make sure that they're contacting the right team, the right folks. Have that available. Have that information readily available, whether it's an email or a website, or something that is easily able to connect with folks once the conference is either happening, and so that maybe that they can connect or contact with you afterwards, right? Because you never know where those connections may lead. Okay, so another way to do that is also to just ask questions, right? Ask questions about things. Is there something on the poster that maybe is not clear? I'm not 100% sure I understand your results. Okay, well, I don't really have a lot of time to dive into all that right now. Let's connect afterwards. I'll send you the paper, or I'll connect you with my mentor, or something along those lines, right? So that will help you, though. That feedback, though, is great, because then now it's like, hey, something I wrote on my conclusions maybe wasn't clear. Maybe I need to revisit that. Okay, so again, as you're starting to think about the next poster that you're doing, or maybe the next step for your own research, that can certainly help you along that path. Okay. And once your poster session is over, think about what you were asked. Think about the feedback that you got. What did people want to talk about? Maybe they really wanted to talk about the methods that you use. Maybe they had a question about why did you use 2 titration tubes instead of 3, right? And so maybe that's something that we can consider, or maybe something that we put on our poster wasn't clear and people were confused, or maybe we had the answer to everybody's question, but maybe we didn't say it very well, or we didn't convey that message right. But think about those posters, right? Because as you do more and more research, there's a higher likelihood that you're going to be invited to do more poster presentations. So again, kind of thinking about what is the next step? What is clear? What is not clear, right? And feel free to ask for feedback. Just real brief. Hey, what do you think about the poster? And that's something that you can take in and you can kind of figure out, what's the best way to go about maybe revising the poster or perhaps building a new one for later conferences on down the road. So 5 little tips there to kind of help you as you start to put the poster together in terms of how the poster should look and also how the poster should convey your message. Remember, the message that we're trying to convey is the impacts that your research has on your impact area. So keep that in mind. All right, so briefly, quickly here, ins and outs of poster presentations. So, people have done these before, they haven't done them before. The vast majority of folks that I've talked to that I've seen in these workshops have never done it before. And obviously we want to make sure that this is as easy and as comfortable for you as possible. And the one question I generally get asked the most is, where do you stand? You want to stand beside your poster, right? So you don't want to stand in front because people can't see through you, but you want to stand off to the side so they can see the poster. If you tend to have more people around your poster, feel free to kind of jump into the crowd. Stand next to the folks who are looking at your poster. But the most important thing to remember is that you want to be within that area. You don't want to run off and leave the poster by itself because somebody may have a question, they may want to clarify something, and you should be available to answer those questions and clarify anything that they may have. So one thing else to consider is or to think about is, when should you engage? Now you're going to have a lot of people that are going to come through your poster, and you can't just, launch into it with your explanation without giving them the opportunity to look through your poster first. So generally it takes about 2 to 3 minutes for someone to look through that poster. So you want to give them that time, and then you want to begin your engagement. And typically you'll see that whenever someone is maybe comes up to you and kind of looks at your poster, and then they start to maybe shake their head. This is my I know for myself that as I'm reading something, as I'm kind of through it, I'm like, okay, that makes sense. And then I, start to perhaps move on to the next one. But that would be a perfect opportunity for somebody to engage me and say, I see you're shaking your head. What did you like about that? What was the most interesting thing that you saw? And then now I'm going to answer the questions. And now here we are. Now we're having a conversation. And so that's a good way to do that, but it also helps you with this last piece here. How should you practice presenting your poster? Poster interactions are short, 3 to 5 minutes. So if you're going to do that, if you want to have some practice, you could ask a friend and say, hey, I need some help practicing. Come to the poster, see the poster. I'll let you read it for a couple of minutes, and then I'm going to ask you some questions, right? So that could be a quick and easy way to do that. You can get a number of friends, 3 to 5 minutes. Again, another thing to do is practice like you're going to do the real thing. So think about what you're going to wear. Think about your shoes. You're probably going to be standing. Do a lot of standing that day. So think about those things. Practice as if it were the real thing. Okay, and that's really going to help you get a little bit more comfortable and make sure that you are ready to go once that day comes along. So what should you have with your presentation? Things like some cards, if you have them, or maybe if you have like a QR code for something, have that available. And the QR code could be to the lab, to the website, to any number of things. Make sure you have those things available. Same thing with links. If you have those available, we would tell most people to try to shrink those links as much as possible, or have a really easy way for people to get to that website, that web page, whatever that may be. Make sure you have any acknowledgements. I have right here the Lemire lab. Dr. Lemire, who's out of biology, has a lab, and that would be an acknowledgement that you want to make sure that you have, and that's usually going to be on the poster itself. So make sure that you have all of those available to you, because a lot of times folks may be interested in the research that you're doing and who you're doing it with, right? So, oh, we're out of the Lemire lab, or something along those lines, so that you'll be able to communicate that, and so that folks will know if I do have additional questions, perhaps I can go talk to Dr. Lemire or whoever's overseeing that lab. And so that's a pretty quick and brief little workshop there. Again, think about what you're going to put on that poster and how that conveys that message. All right. And so if there are questions about that, if you all have any concerns, definitely feel free to reach out. You can email me at any time. The one thing that I would ask is that if you are going to have a question, put in the subject line that this is URC, so that I know that this is something that I need to get to as quickly as possible. Again, remember that this is a competition, so something to think about is, of course, consider what your research is doing for your impact area. Okay, so if you kind of think about it from that frame, I think you're going to be in a lot better shape than some of your other colleagues who may not be conveying that message. So feel free again. There's another workshop about building the poster. Feel free to check that one out. We're also going to have opportunities to practice. So once you build your poster, you'd like to practice some of these interactions, we certainly have that information available on the URC's website, or you can reach out to me and I can point you in the right direction. So I hope everybody found this helpful. Again, if there are any questions, comments, or concerns, please let me know. And also, again, just a reminder that this PACE program is available for you as undergrads who are researching or going to a research conference. Maybe that's not this one, you're going to something else, and we want to definitely be available to help you prepare for that as needed. So again, hope that was useful, but if there's any questions or whatever, just let me know. All right, thanks everyone, appreciate it, bye.